Hey everybody, here we have another video for our next portion of EDC Medical. Today we're talking about the tourniquet. So obviously this is one of the most recognizable medical tools when it comes to really trauma, but really medical in general. This tool alone can help you save lots of lives by literally just keeping blood in the person's body. It is not the end all be all. I'm going to be upfront, straightforward with that. It is not the end all be all, because obviously the tourniquet cannot do the job of a chest seal, just like the chest seal cannot do the job of a tourniquet. But this is definitely something that you don't want to leave out of your EDC medical kit. So thinking about, first off, of tourniquets. There's a lot of different tourniquets. Obviously we want to have good, legitimate tourniquets. So if you are trying to save money in different ways and things like that, tourniquets is really not a place where you want to try to do that. You know, Amazon or different places like that, there's lots of tourniquets that are knockoffs and things like that that you can sell, that you can buy for real cheap, but they're not actually going to do the job. They're not going to really be, you know, exactly what you want it to do. They're not going to be 100% perfect for the job. Even though they might look at it exactly like another tourniquet, they might look like it can do the job and it's the same as any other tourniquet, but really they're very cheaply made. We've seen like the windlasses break on them and all kinds of things like that. You know, if you want to get them to be your practice tourniquets, maybe that's something you want to do, but definitely for sure not the actual tourniquet you're throwing in your medical kit or your pocket or things like that when you're walking around for your everyday carry. You want to actually have something legitimate. So there's a lot of different tourniquets you can use from different companies, things like that. Just look at the Committee on Tactical Combat Casualty Care and all the tourniquets they recommend. A big one obviously is North American Rescue's CAT tourniquet. This is the Gen 7 from them. It's the easiest one for self-application, and so obviously whether we're applying it to ourselves or applying it to someone else, we want it to be easy to use. So this is the one we recommend above anything else. Just get the CAT, okay? Specifically their newest model, the Gen 7. So now that we've talked about tourniquets and different ones, we're going to talk about staging. So some people, and I mean to the derision of a lot of people, they have their tourniquets staged just like this. The time tab closed, things like that. Thinking about instances where obviously you're going to be in a medical situation, it just might be like, you know, a self-defense situation, a shooting, and things like that. There's going to be a huge adrenaline dump, your heart's racing, all these things are happening. You don't necessarily want to have your time tab closed. You want to have it open so that it's one less thing that you have to worry about or you have to try to get around when you're trying to apply your tourniquet. So really staging it like this with the time tab actually open, just maybe a little bit of overhang right here, so when you are going to use it you actually have a little piece to grab, but actually being like this is how you want it, not completely around it. Secondly, you want to have it staged so that your tourniquet's only a little bit through, not, you know, halfway or something like that. You want to have it a little bit, and definitely not to where you don't have it at all. You actually want to have it a little bit so that if you're going to be putting it on a leg, you know, maybe your own or someone else's, you might be feeding it underneath the leg and then wrapping it around. So having it, you know, not like halfway through or something like that, but having it very close so you can just pull it out, feed that underneath the leg and then bring it back and then come back is important. At the same time, if instead you're going to have, you know, you're putting on an arm or something like that, you're going to want to have it so it has a little bit through so that when you're applying it on the arm, you're actually able to pull it off and actually cinch it down and things like that. From there, say I'm just going to keep working with this that's on my arm. I put it on. This is facing away from me so that the tab, how it would stage, would be facing close to me. I'm going to tighten this down as much as possible. What you want to do is actually tighten the tourniquet down as much as possible before you even start working on the windlass. You're going to feed it through here, and then you're going to actually start working on the windlass. The reason you're tightening it down as tight as possible first is because the windlass here is actually working on a little tensioning ribbon right there. So it only has you know, so much work that it can do. After a certain time, it's really not going to be able to tighten down anymore. And so if you have it loose to begin with, you're not necessarily going to be able to get it as tight as you want it to be. So you have it nice and tight. I'm not going to give you, tell you, the perfect number is 2 or some of that, but a lot of people say you're only really wanting to be able to turn the windlass a few times, 1, 2, 3 times or some of that, because really that's how tight you should have it to begin with. You're turning it a few times, you turn it, and then once you actually turn it, you get it in, and you actually put it and secure it there, and then is where you finally pull the time tab over, and then from there you can write the time in and things like that. So a big thing that some people don't do, whether they don't think about it, they don't teach things that, is actually putting this excess bit of the tourniquet through there as well, where the windlass is also getting secured. The big thing about that is you want it to be in there so it's secured just like the windlass, so that it's not getting moved around or things like that. It's not catching on something or anything, and it's making the tourniquet get loose. So that's a big thing with movement. Every time, say you move a patient or something, not saying that you would need to or should move the patient, leave that up to medical professionals if need be, but you would want to reassess the tourniquet, make sure it didn't get loose, make sure the patient isn't losing blood now again or things like that. So obviously putting that excess tourniquet through and securing it where the windlass is also secured is important so that it's not getting snagged on anything. Okay, now thinking about that tensioning ribbon and things like that, so what it has here is it's tightening on this little tensioning ribbon. So through the tourniquet is this little ribbon that slowly tightens down even more on it, secures it, right? But a big thing with this, just as much as there's only so much it can tighten down on, there's only so much times you want to really use this tourniquet, tighten down on that windlass, on that tensioning ribbon before, it's not going to be as good as it was before. So that's why really it's recommended that you only use a tourniquet once, and whether it's just practicing or in real life, and then don't use it again for real life. So that's where having practice tourniquets come in. You definitely want to have practice tourniquets that aren't your actual use tourniquets, just like you don't want to mix the ones that you're throwing in your pocket or your medical kit or some of that, and you're using those, to also practice with. You want to have them separate, because at the end of the day, even if you have a CAT Gen 7, if you say this is my only tourniquet, I've been running hundreds, maybe even thousands of practice iterations on this thing, what's to say that sadly when I actually need this to work, it might not work as good as it needed to, or as good as it could have if I literally just pulled this out of the package and put it into my pocket and used it that day, the day of that I needed it. Because of using it so much with practices, it was worn down and things like that. So guys, that's another big thing with tourniquets, is have practice tourniquets. Use tourniquets, practice tourniquets. And if you want the practice tourniquets to be, the cheaper ones or some of that, I'll leave that up to you for sure. North American Rescue makes the actual tourniquets. I recommend, just like they make the trainer tourniquets as well, the practice tourniquets. So guys, tourniquet, it's a huge thing. It's a very important deal. It's not the end all be all, but it is a vital tool to keep a person alive. So make sure you get a tourniquet and your EDC Medical. Take care, guys.